when, you know, there was a lot of very good work went on, but everybody focuses on the small amount of bad, really. That's my feeling. I think people go back to like the 60s and 70s. I mean, sometimes in some ways, like some of the treatments like ECT, you think they're still not 100% sure how it works and they're still doing it. But generally, medications had improved. People didn't get the horrendous side effects and things and all that. People used to say they used to feel numb and have no emotions. People don't say that the same now about the new antipsychotic drugs and things. They're much, much improved. So, and when you do talk to people, there's not many people complain about Highroyds just prior to it closing. It's all from like the 60s and 70s. So. But that's somehow stuck and nobody's ever been able to move away from it.
Well, very long corridors, as you might think, and in the winter time, I remember that patients, particularly the male patients, would lie next to the long radiators that were down the main corridor, because I think they weren't allowed to sleep on their ward and on their bed, so they would come out, and because it was warm underneath the radiators, they would lie underneath the radiators. So sometimes you'd walk down the corridor and you'd feel these eyes look up at you, watching you as you went past, and I felt very self-conscious. And the first time I saw the ballroom there, I was very struck by that, really, because it was largely disused at that time, and it was a very desolate looking room, but absolutely massive. That was another thing that struck me. There were these 4 big stone fireplaces which had been used to heat the room when the Victorians would have their balls, and I didn't quite understand what its role had been, really, whether it was just for staff or whether they would have staff patient dues there. But in my time, it was very dusty, and there was a stage that was kind of had chairs stacked up on it, and there was old furniture lying about, and there was a badminton net that was kind of looking a bit derelict, really. One side of it was down, and it looked as if at one point it had been used as a sports hall, but wasn't really being used now. It was just all very dramatic and very, very strange. Part of it had been partitioned off, and it was a patient's coffee bar. So this one corner of it was a patient's coffee bar, which was, in my memory, was always very messy. You know, you'd go in and there'd be like tea spilt on the floor and on the tables, and cups lying about. Really, it wasn't really a very pleasant place to go and sit. It seemed to me it wasn't really a very therapeutic environment as a whole, really.
Well, this chapel was built specifically for the simple burial service. More often than not, the only people attending the burials would be the clergy and possibly the gravedigger. They'd come here, they would have a simple service in the chapel, and then they'd go outside and be buried. And what we intend to do as the Friends of Highroyds Memorial Garden is create somewhere where people come and reflect, possibly find the relatives. One of the things that I'm specifically interested in is locating these people, tracing their history, and putting people in touch. And I suppose if just one great-granddaughter, great-grandson comes and seeks out the relative and brings a bunch of flowers, we've done this job. It's about giving them respect as well. Even back in 1881, the workhouses saw that burying people in pauper graves wasn't really showing them respect without putting them a gravestone on top, you know, with the name. They never did it here. This was something that was never done. They were just simply buried in unmarked graves and literally forgotten about. There aren't very many of these former Victorian asylums still alive. There's the odd one, but the majority are shutting them down. They're either being knocked down or they're being converted into housing. Highroyds, Menston Asylum, Menston Mental Hospital, as it was known in all the different names, it's been converted to housing. It's quite a nice building. A little bit scary looking, but the architecture is beautiful. So yes, they're keeping that, but they're removing all traces of what it was in that sense. And all we're left, really, is this chapel and all these people that lived on those wards, that lived out their lives. any of the art. And I think it's very important that we don't brush all this under the carpet.
Yes, there was like, well, they used to refer to it as sort of a revolving door, and you'd see the same people time and time again coming back in. And I think especially people with depression, they'd lift the mood up a little bit, they'd do staged going home, and then you'd look round and they'd seem to be back again. But it was a bit of a safety net for them, I think, and you know, they felt safe there, really. I know a lot of people have quite negative thoughts about Highroyds, but a lot of patients I knew did feel very safe there, and there was no pressure on them. You know, they could just, you know, relax, really. I mean, if there was quite a lot of very poorly people on the ward and it was quite chaotic, that was quite difficult. But generally, I think most people quite enjoyed that space, and the pressure from work and families, that was all removed. They could just be there.